sorry. I seem to be using up all the oxygen. What's your story?
You heard the questions, girls. This is what we do. At 120...
What's up, my vault dwellers? You know, before the 70s got weird and the 80s got excessive, the 60s were quietly creating some of the most insane B-movies ever made. And today, we're diving into 13 films that prove you didn't need a budget to be completely unhinged. I mean, we're going to talk about underwater gangsters fighting rubber sea monsters, a guy keeping his girlfriend's head alive in a pan, and Santa Claus literally fighting Martians. So let's rank these beautiful disasters from merely bizarre to reality-breaking weird.
I hate him for what he's done to me. If he only knew what it's like being like this.
So starting us off with a movie that asks the important question, what if your fiance lost her head in a car crash, but you just kept it? So we got a mad scientist who decides the best way to handle grief is by keeping his girlfriend's severed head alive while he shops for a new body. So this guy takes getting ahead in life, I mean, way too literally. But the best part, the head spends like the whole movie sassing him from a band like it's a sitcom about roommates where one just happens to be decapitated. Plus, there's this like locked door with a monster behind it because, you know, apparently keeping your girlfriend's head alive wasn't enough plot for the 60s.
What's this, Todd? No, it was a monster.
What do you mean a monster?
A real, live, honest-to-goodness monster with claws and everything.
You know, Roger Corman looked at gangster movies and monster movies and thought, let's just do both. A bunch of mobsters try to steal some Cuban gold by blaming death on a fake sea monster, only to discover there's a real sea monster. The creature looks like, I don't know, someone described Cookie Monster to a blind person who then had to make a costume drunk. I mean, the whole thing was shot in just 5 days in Puerto Rico, with locals being paid $1 an hour to act terrified of what's clearly a guy in a wetsuit covered in Brillo pads and pipe cleaners. I mean, the best part, when a boat actually sank during filming, Corman kept rolling. It just made it part of the plot. So before Richard Kiel was menacing James Bond as Jaws, he was terrorizing a suburbia as a prehistoric caveman with romance on his mind. So picture like Romeo and Juliet, but Romeo is 7 feet tall, just thawed out, and really confused by swimming pools. So this film gives us, you know, timeless story of boy meets girl, girl meets caveman, caveman doesn't understand telephones. It's basically a fish out of water story. If the fish was a massive caveman who decided Palm Springs would be a great place to find some love.
Realize what this means? You let it thaw. And now, it is alive.
Apparently Denmark decided they wanted their own Godzilla. But instead of a radioactive lizard, they got, well, a puppet that looks like someone's sock drawer came to life. So this was the most expensive Danish film ever made at the time, which, you know, raises some serious questions about the Danish film industry. The monster, it attacks Copenhagen in what looks like slow motion, probably because that's all the puppet could manage without its strings showing. The American version did get re-edited because apparently even B-movie standards were different in Europe. So this movie was also known as Attack of the Mushroom People because, you know, apparently the title tested better. the director of Godzilla decided to make a film about people turning into mushrooms, which is exactly the kind of career pivot you don't see anymore. This thing is basically a cautionary tale about drugs told through the medium of fungal body horror. It did get banned in the UK for being too weird, which in the 60s, that's really saying something.
Stand up! Turn up that decorator! Stand up!
This movie exists. It's not a joke. Someone actually made a film about Martians kidnapping Santa Claus. You know, the Martian costumes, they look like they were made from leftover green Halloween masks and spray-painted scuba gear. And the plot, it's basically Martian kids. They're sad because they don't have a Christmas, which leads to the logical solution of alien abduction. It's like a holiday special mistakenly got mixed up with some sci-fi B movie, but nobody bothered to fix it.
Vacation time. Man and wife. Unaware of scientific progress.
This movie has a Soviet scientist who gets exposed to radiation and turns into Tor Johnson walking around in the desert looking confused. I mean, there's almost no dialogue because they couldn't afford to record sound while filming. So instead, we get random narration about flag on the moon and progress that sounds like it was recorded in someone's bathroom. The whole thing was shot in just 6 days, which honestly feels like about 5 days too many. The director seems to have a personal vendetta against basic film techniques like showing people's faces while they're talking.
One might be your secretary, your doctor's receptionist, or a dancer in a go-go club.
Russ Meyer gives us 3 go-go dancers who decide to spice up their lives with some casual violence and desert crime sprees. This thing has more rapid editing than Michael Bay movie and more attitude than a punk rock concert. It's like, someone took a woman's liberation manifesto, filtered it through B-movie exploitation. The dialogue is just pure pulp poetry, delivered by actors who punch every line like they're trying to knock out the camera. So Japan looked at Godzilla and thought, what if we made him a turtle who can fly by shooting fire out his leg holes? This is what happens when kaiju movies do their own version of kid-friendly content. The best part is how Gamera becomes friend to all children, which mostly involves him destroying cities while kids cheer him on. It's like having a really destructive babysitter who solves all problems by spinning like a flying saucer.
All hands stand by for action. Fire one.
Before Sony Chiba was breaking bones in martial art films, he was fighting underwater cyborg monsters in this Japanese-American co-production. The underwater scenes look like they were shot in somebody's swimming pool, but that's just part of the charm. The film features some of the most ambitious underwater sequences ever shot on a budget that probably couldn't cover a decent snorkel. The aquatic creatures look like they were designed by someone who heard of fish, but ain't never really actually seen one before.
Oh, Uncle Andre, I'm scared of explosions.
You'll get used to them, Maria. All cave explorers get used to them after a while.
This Spanish horror film features an invisible monster terrorizing people in the mountains. Now, that's either brilliant budget-conscious filmmaking or just really extremely lazy? It's probably both, though. I mean, the real star here, it's the sound design, which consists mainly of people reacting in terror to absolutely nothing. I mean, the whole movie is just people reacting to roaring noises while wind machines blow stuff around. It's like a haunted house attraction where they ran out of the props, but they still had to open.
All right, mister. I see you have a taillight problem.
No excuse. Running late, first vacation, kid getting tired.
That's too bad.
So, can't you give us a break, officer?
Well, all right.
Crazy enough, this was made by a fertilizer salesman who bet he could make a movie. And this film is what happens when someone loses a bet but follows through anyways. So Harold P. Warren, he wrote, directed, produced, and starred in this film, proving that sometimes one person really shouldn't wear all the hats. This film's most memorable character is Torgo, a servant with enormous knees who moves like he's trying to remember how walking works. I mean, every scene just goes on just twice as long as it should, making this feel less like a movie and more like a long COVID fever dream about a really bad movie. Our number one movie is about undertakers who kill people to supply their restaurant with meat. That's not the weird part. The weird part, it's played as a comedy. It's like somebody watched Sweeney Todd and thought, this needs more slapstick. And this thing somehow manages to be both genuinely disturbing and unintentionally hilarious. It's what would happen if the Three Stooges decided to make a cannibal movie. So if you're still here at this point of the video, then you really need to commit yourself to the channel and subscribe. Plus, you need to click that like button as hard as you possibly can. Also, I need you to drop a comment if you've actually seen any of these beautiful disasters, or like most of you guys, let me know where I screwed up in the editing or narration. And there you have it, my vault dwellers. That was 13 pieces of evidence that the 60s were quietly laying the groundwork for every weird movie that would follow. And this is Dan. I'm reminding you that sometimes the best movies are the ones that probably shouldn't exist. Stay radical.